Assalamualaikum viewers, my name is Rabia Ali.
And my name is Usama Khurshid.
Welcome to our program Cutting Edge. Today me and my co-host Mr. Usama Khurshid Khan are here to talk about very important conflict of Jerusalem, which is in the limelight these days. We know that the 45th President of the United States, Mr. Donald J. Trump, delivered on a major campaign promise on 6 December 2017. It was a promise that preceding presidents have routinely made, but none were able to follow up words with actions. We know that as per Mr. Trump's decision, the United States would move its embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, effectively recognizing it as the capital of the country. Unsurprisingly, this unpopular decision was met with violence, protest, vandalism, and a massive wave of arrests across Palestine. Here I would like to ask you, Mr. Osama, amidst this new looming crisis, a layman might wonder, what's the exactly Jerusalem is so important?
The status of Jerusalem is significant because of the three Abrahamic religions: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. For Judaism, it is roughly 3,000 years, to Christianity for around 2,000 years, and to Islam for approximately 1,400 years. The 2000 Statistical Yearbook of Jerusalem lists 1,204 synagogues, 158 churches, and 73 mosques within the holy city. Let me tell you an interesting thing, that the first siege of Jerusalem happened when there was a clash between the Romans and the Jews. The Roman emperor, the Titus and Vespasian, squandered the Jews and left them homeless. Another turning point in the history for the Jews, that was the victory of the Cyrus the Great against the Babylonian Empire. When the Persians overthrew the Babylonian Empire, the Cyrus the Conqueror issued a proclamation releasing the Jews from their 70-year period of captivity. Jews again gathered themselves in the city of Jerusalem.
Well, Osama, that was very interesting. Viewers, let me tell you a very interesting thing here, that a pamphlet titled Der Judenstaat, which means a Jewish state, appeared in the year 1896, which was published in Vienna, articulating the establishment of a Jewish state. Osama, if I'm not wrong, it was through this document that a new debate raged on about who the city's true custodians were. Almost 2 decades later, the Balfour Declaration came forth as a public declaration by the British Foreign Secretary at that time, Arthur Balfour. The declaration was addressed to Lord Rothschild, which had inscribed within it the idea of a Jewish state. Let me ask you, Mr. Osama, that what were the reasons behind this declaration? What do you think? Why was it drafted?
Thank you, Rabia. Let me tell you that the British was a great colonial power, and the control over Palestine was a strategic imperial interest to keep Egypt and the Suez Canal within the Britain's sphere of influence. And another major stake was to safeguard the Jews as they were being persecuted in Europe. So Great Britain was sympathetic to their sufferings. But for me, this whole concept, this whole declaration actually shredded the concept of nationhood, and it is a slap on the face of the secularism, because they welcome all the Jews of the world in this hypothetical state named as the Israel.
Viewers, here I would add on that the tensions and the bad blood between the Arabs and the Israelis barely need an introduction. However, it does deserve a closer study. A conflict that has seethed from the days of British control that resulted in the 1920 British Mandate of Palestine. In 1947, these tensions finally took a turn from the worst when a full-scale civil war was erupted. The United Nations intervened and came up with a plan to divide Palestine into 3 regions on 29 November 1947, called the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine. The division would result in 3 distinct territories: an Arab state, an Israeli state, and a special international regime overseeing the affairs of Jerusalem. The Balfour Declaration, in hindsight, was root cause leading to the First Arab-Israeli War in 1948. 2 more wars followed in 1956 and 1967, also motivated in part from the Balfour Declaration. Viewers, let me ask Mr. Osama about the international mediation of this conflict.
Okay, Rabia, let me tell you another thing from the history, that there was a two-state solution which was mediated by the international arena. The two-state solution produced that there should be an independent state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel on the west of the Jordan River. The boundary between the two states is still subject to dispute and negotiation, while Palestine and Arab leadership insisting on the 1967 borders, but now that's not been accepted by the Israel. In the contemporary era, back in 2013 and 14, the Israel-Palestine peace talks were being started by the United States Secretary of State John Kerry. These peace talks were failed as the Israel settlements in the West Bank and the East Jerusalem were not accepted by the Palestinians.
Well said, Mr. Osama. As viewers, we have discussed that Trump has announced Jerusalem as Israel capital. What do you think, Osama? What would be the regional implications and dynamics?
Okay, for the regional implications, the response from the Muslim world was due, and Saudi Arabia was supposed to be more belligerent as it has been the leader of the Muslim world. But apparently, as you know, that's not the story. My perspective on this issue is that the geopolitics favored this decision more than at any time in the history. It is nearly impossible that Saudi Arabia would play an important role in the reversal of the US decision. Turkey may lead a block for such reversal, but Saudi Arabia is very unlikely and nearly impossible. Saudi Arabia is not supporting this cause because it is already in the Cold War with the Iran, which is far more important than Palestine for them. The warm embrace between Saudi Arabia and Israel is increasingly becoming mainstream, and it is not longer lurks in the backdoor allies of diplomacy. Moreover, let me tell you an interesting thing, that the Saudi Arabia is planning the Neon City, and that aspiration also warrant KS's recognition of Israel, a recognition of Israel with Jerusalem as a capital. For Saudi Arabia, Palestine outlived its utility. For them, there are more pressing issues at play than Palestine. Let me tell you another interesting thing, that the leadership of Muslim world is in a transitional phase because it is moving from Arabs to the non-Arab. As we have witnessed that Turkey was on the front line while organizing the summit on this pressing issue. Apparently, we have seen that there was a presence of only 22 head of states in the recent OIC summit, which was led by Turkey. The OIC Secretary General Dr. Yusuf Ali Othman said that the OIC uncompromisingly rejects the US move as an act which constitutes a clear violation of international law and runs against the spirit of UN Charter and relevant UN resolutions.
Well, Osama, that was very nice of you to share that information with all of us. We were talking about the international arena and major powers. In the international circles of diplomacy, Israel's claim to have the entire city has never been granted an unanimous acknowledgement. China and Russia, the two emerging powers of the world, remain crucial factors in this regard. Through both their current and historical stances on the issue, it is likely that their continued objection to Israel's claim to Jerusalem will continue. The principal reason is the vitality of the city and its impervious role in the foreign policy of both countries towards the region. While the US granted its recognition to Jerusalem, the rest of the world was less optimistic and sternly criticized the move as a possible trigger to move unrest in an already fickle region. Osama, what do you think? What will be the conclusion to this? What will be the conclusion to our discussion?
Okay, Rabia, if I sum up the whole issue, there are 5 to 6 major points. As we all know that Jerusalem, a disputed land, a sacred land for all three religions, is in faltering and fumbling position. The leadership of Muslim world is once again shifting from Arabs to non-Arabs, as we have seen in OIC summit. Saudi Arabia, it's already in the turmoil. They are in the supreme nationalistic mood. I can say again that Muslims are betraying Muslims for their own interest, as it has already been done in the past. In my assessment, the same dynamics is at the play at the moment. Another point which is very important, I want to put a light on it, that the US has once again violated the international law, as it bypassed back in 2003. Despite that, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestine, clearly said that the US is not fit to mediate the Israel-Palestine peace talks. This whole episode will eventually make the Middle East in more turmoil and turbulence. The last point from my side, which is also very thought-provoking, is that in recent United Nations General Assembly session, 128 countries denounced the unilateral act of United States of America regarding the capital of Jerusalem. Apart from that, the American ambassador Nikki R. Haley called the vote null and void, declaring that no vote in the United Nations will make any difference on the United States' plans to move its embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. So, point to ponder is that what will be the future of the world? The whole world is standing on one side, and the United States of America is standing on one side. There is a phenomenon of multipolarity, which means that US will not hold the status of superpower. The US is on decline. Now, analyzing the whole debate, the whole world is on one side and the US is standing on the other side. The consequences worldwide would be very disrupting and it will impact on the power structure of the world.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sama, for sharing such information with me and my viewers. Viewers, with the conclusions that Mr. Sama had mentioned, I think that we are going to witness the demise of the Muslim world. Thank you for watching us, guys, and hope to see you in the next program. Take good care of yourself and your national affairs. Allah Hafiz.
Allah.